Hey, True Believers, Anglin here with another episode of Is the Sandman Really That Good? It's really an episode of Really That Good. We're just doing Sandman at this point. This is Volume 2, The Dollhouse. Now, this has got two of my favorite Sandman issues in it. I'm really trying hard to look at it with an open mind. We'll find out how that works. With all that said, let's get this party started. Starting off with issue number 9, obviously we always look at the cover, and I love this cover. Yes, you do have Nala, I believe her name is, and Nuala, and of course the Sandman on the opposite side. I am not quite sure what the middle image is, but I've always loved these covers, even though they're so vague. So, so I don't know what to say about this. In Book 1, Preludes and Nocturnes, there's an issue where Sandman goes to hell and he meets a woman, and she's basically saying, why or how long do I have to do this? Have you forgiven me yet? And he says, no. This is that story. So it starts off with an old man taking a young man out into the desert where they sit around and they even pick up some sort of it's like a piece of heart-shaped glass. And he says, you should never take this out of here, and here's why. And he begins to tell the story. And it's the story of how Morpheus, the Sandman, came to this city. And there was this beautiful, beautiful princess, more beautiful than anyone could ever imagine. And she was looking for a man she could truly love, and she sees Morpheus. And they look at each other and instantly fall in love, but then she discovers who and what she is, or what he is, and she decides that there's no way that the two of them could, the two people, they could ever love each other, because things always end badly whenever a mortal decides to get involved with an immortal, whenever, especially one of the endless. He's not even a god, he's a concept, he's a conceptual being, and this could not end well for her, so she decides not to have any kind of relationship with him. And he pursues this. He pursues the relationship, and he asks her many times, are you sure? Will you come with me now? And he shows that he loves her as much as she had shown that she loved him. But the difference between the two of them is just too great for her. She even goes and she tries to mutilate herself to make him not want him. By that I mean, to cut the hymen so he wouldn't want her anymore. He just prepares it. He repairs it and says, no, it's okay. And that, of course, he says one more time, will you love me? And she says no, and he condemns her to hell. And the city falls apart, and that's what all this glass around there is supposed to be, and that's why you're not supposed to remove the glass from that particular area. That's the only reason I could tell for this old man to bring this young man to tell the story. There's no moral. There's no, well, remember, son, I'm telling you this story to remember that you never blah, 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 yada, yada. This seems like it's a village meeting, just in case anybody comes out and happens to see this glass. This isn't a one-on-one kind of story. There's really absolutely no reason we should have this old man, young man telling the story kind of thing. There's no moral to it. There's no, here's the lesson you should learn from it, other than don't take the glass. Like I said, send a memo next time. You're doing it wrong. The book itself isn't bad. It's just, other than telling the story, which is going to set up the Seasons of Mist coming up, there's no point to it. Issue number 10 is the Dollhouse official start. Now, the story, the last issue, that could have gone into Dream Country, if you ask me, and they could have just started from here. But there you go. And the image, I guess this could be the main character in the Dollhouse. I don't know. It looks like, I don't know. It's okay. The covers on, I shouldn't even be talking about the covers for Sandman. The story starts off with Desire and Delirium talking about how they want to play a game with Dream now that he's been released and everything. And Delirium's even like, wait, the older siblings don't like to play these games. And Desire's like, yeah, well, we might have a little fun. And this, of course, is also setting up Season of Mist more than anything else. Not too much about what's going to go on here. What goes on in this first issue is there's a young lady that was in the first issue of the very first issue of Sandman who, because Sandman was caught, fell asleep, and she would only wake up for a little bit, and she got impregnated. Well, here we have Rose and we have her mother going to meet supposedly her grandmother, who was that girl who fell asleep and just wouldn't wake up but maybe 4 times a year and found herself impregnated. And obviously, yeah, she couldn't take care of the kids, so they got separated. Anyway, find out that Rose Walker is a dream vortex, and she just so happens to be spying on Morpheus and Lucian when they're talking about are all the dream arcana still in the house, and Lucian's like, well, you got Brute and Glob, they're missing, you got the Corinthian, he's a nightmare and he's missing, and then Fiddler's green, and they're missing. And that's when Sandman brings up the vortex, that she's watching us now, and that these dream arcana, because she's a dream vortex, will probably attract them to her, or she'll be attracted to them in some way, shape, or form. And it's also told that Rose has a brother that went missing, so Rose decides to go off on her own adventure, and she even gets visited by the Fates, but of course they just appeared, so she's like, who are you? That's one question, you know, they can only get 3, and she wastes them, basically. And so that's the setup for the Dollhouse. Okay, and it's actually a pretty good character study. We do get to know who everyone is. Rose Walker, we get a great idea of who she is just from her interactions with her family and the witches, the whole 9 yards. And more to the point, it's a really easy read. I thought it wouldn't be, but nah, overall, this is a strong start to the book. I would have rather it started here than the story of the romance. Like I said, I think that first issue would have been served better being in the next volume. Okay, cover looks good, makes no sense as to what's going on inside the book, blah, 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 yada, yada, we get it. I'm moving on. Issue number 11 can also be called The Dollhouse Part 1, Part 2, because this is another start where she really is getting to her journey to find her little brother. She goes to a boarding house, and we meet an eclectic cast of characters so weird they could not possibly exist in the same place. We're also treated to, I got this wrong before, Hector Hall, excuse me, the original Sandman. He is in a dreamland protecting a boy named Jed against all sorts of dream enemies. There's a gentleman that lives above Rose. The landlord is a drag queen. You got 2 women dressed in bridal gowns, really dark, with a big spider collection. And then Barbie and Ken, who are a cute couple who finish each other's sentences. That's who are living in the house with her. Not that you're going to need this for a while, because in all honesty, they disappear after this issue for a few issues. One night, Rose is walking around and she gets attacked. These guys are going to mug her and everything, but out of nowhere comes Gilbert, the guy who lives above her, and he helps her out. You know, he's got a sword cane of some sorts, but anyway, that's pretty nice of him. He introduces himself and they become pretty good friends. So that's part of the story. The main part, of course, is dealing with Jed and the Sandman, the 1970s Sandman and his wife Alita, and they're in the Infinity Inc. if you haven't seen that. And we find out that Jed's real living conditions are, let's say, less than satisfactory. Anyway, Rose gets word of where her brother is, so she's going to go try for another clue. Gilbert agrees to go with her. At the same time, Morpheus is thinking, wait a second, her brother, this guy's hidden from me. I don't know why he's being hidden from the dreaming. And he realizes it's the work of Brute and Glob, 2 of the arcanes that are missing, so he decides to go do battle with them. And we are introduced to a killer who collects eyeballs. Not kidding. That is a thing that's going to come in for play. Turns out it's one of the other arcane. I'll just spoil it right now. So anyway, there you go. That's the story so far. It's actually, like I said, this could be part 1 all over again. But it's a decent story. It's a good setup. Very strange characters, almost strange for strangeness' sake. So it's sort of but overall, at least that, you know, the rest of the story is very strong, and I'm looking forward to the next issue. In part 3 of The Dollhouse, we deal with Brute and Glob, two of the Arcane, and we see that they're actually controlling the 1970s Sandman, and Alita, she's been pregnant in the Dreaming forever and a day now. And so they've been protecting this boy, Jed, from all sorts of horrors, except for the horrors of living. He is a foster kid who got taken in by the wrong parents. He ran away once, so they now keep him in the basement. They beat him up, and he wants to escape. So Morpheus is coming after Brute and Glob. And here's the thing. There's a lot of filler here. There's a lot of stuff that is extra. Like, it serves the story overall, I guess. But in the end, it works like this. Morpheus shows up. He's more powerful than everybody, so he wins instantly. There's no tension as to who's going to be defeated in the particular battles that are to come. So Gaiman has to make sure that these are very strong issues, otherwise we're going to lose interest. There's really no tension to this at all. Except, okay, maybe is Jed going to die? Is he not going to die? What's messing around with Hector and Alita going to do to affect him? Because right away, he shows up and he's like, whoa, hold on there, Sandman from the 1970s. First of all, I can't believe you're calling yourself that. Second of all, you're dead, so goodbye. Go wherever you're supposed to go at this point. And Alita gets mad at this, tries to attack him, swears revenge, and Sandman's like, this baby was conceived or has been in the Dreaming for so long, he's mine, and in time I will come to collect him. And she's like, over my dead body, which is important. Also important is that Jed makes his escape, and he jumps into a car and catches a ride with Corinthian, another one of the Arcanes, a Nightmare in this case. And that leads to one of my favorite books in this series. Sandman, issue number 13, The Dollhouse, part 4. We interrupt this program to bring you a story about a guy at a bar, and he's talking to his friends, and in walk Death and Sandman, and they're talking to each other, but then they overhear what he's saying, and he's saying, people die because they see people die before them. It's for suckers. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to have anything to do with it. And Death goes, really? You want to play a game? Okay, you're the one that tells him. So, boom, he doesn't die. And they make a pact. The Sandman and this guy's going to meet. His name's Hobbs for a while. And he's going to meet, and for every 100 years, he's just going to tell Sandman what happened to him during his life. And guess what? That's what this entire issue is about. After this, there's going to be a volume, a trade paperback. It's called Dream Country, and it's a whole bunch of single-issue stories. This and the story about Nuala, whatever her name is, and the Sandman loving each other could have easily have fit in that story, leaving this to be uninterrupted. I'm sorry, but this story, it doesn't. I love this issue. This is an excellent issue. This is one of the best issues of the Sandman, hands down. The writing is incredible. Absolutely. It interrupts the story. It brings things to a dead halt. Month by month, okay, maybe it works because we forget, oh yeah, okay, there's a story going. It does. It brings things to a dead halt as far as Country, excuse me, as far as the Doll's House is concerned. The only thing in here is we meet Joanna Constantine, who that's going to come up later as well. Once again, great issue. If you get a chance to read it, you will do yourself a favor if you do read it. It's an amazing story. Absolutely unnecessary. Here, it interrupts things and brings the whole Dollhouse to a screeching halt. The first issue delays things. This issue, stop dead. The Dollhouse, part 5. This is Sandman issue number 14. This is one of my favorite of all time. It's called The Collectors. It's a serial convention, except for SERI, because it's a serial killer convention. It's one of the... I was so blown away when I first read this. Of course, I thought it was a look into the minds of serial killers, when really it's a look into the minds of serial killers through the lens of this writer. So he did about as much research as I've ever done. There are other elements, like in of the story. Gilbert tells Rose one of the first tellings of Red Riding Hood, or at least Little Red, because Riding Hood was added later, as well as the happy ending. But for the most part, this is all about a convention of serial killers. Of course, they have their rules to follow, and they can't call each other by real names. It's all the names they were given, the Hunter, the Corinthian, stuff like that. The doctor, one of them's called Dog Soup is another. The boogeyman shows up, and he's asking a lot of questions that make the doctor think that's not the boogeyman. I don't know who that is, but it's not. Now, they're talking about that when he get on the elevator, and Gilbert acts strangely to the Corinthian, which gives you a thought that he knows who he is. And if he knows who the Corinthian is, then obviously he must be the other Arcane, who was, of course, naturally drawn to Rose. So they capture the fake boogeyman, take him out to the forest to deal with him. We even hear the Corinthian say, "I have something in my trunk," which is Jed, Rose's brother. Now, there is another serial killer who doesn't come right out and say he hunts at Disney, but at one point he says it's a small world while he's trying to kill Rose. Yeah. Very subtle there, Neil. Very, very subtle indeed. Anyway, she says Morpheus's name, and Morpheus appears to rescue her. Gilbert gave her the name to read, and when he discovers that she did, then he says, okay, well, I guess both of us are going to have to live with those consequences. Sandman shows up with a Corinthian and unmakes him, saying that he'll make him a lot better. He's very disappointed in the fact that he just gave him scary people. People already knew there were scary people out there, so he was a disappointment. Once again, Gilbert finds Jed in the back of Corinthian's car, and all seems to be well. Or is it? Sandman number 15, Dollhouse Part 6. Okay, so here we have the story. It was introduced in the first part of Dollhouse, and we are finally getting back to it. She's a dream vortex. Okay, there we go. And granted, yes, I understand that along the way we picked up the Arcane. And even Fiddler's Green is gone. No, wait, does he do that here? No, that's in the next issue. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so yeah, everybody, they're all where they need to be and everything. And we return to the house with all the strange people. And as I said before, these strange people were written that way so we would have strange dreams. There's no real reason for them to be like this. Two women who wear bridal veils all the time, bridal dresses, and they collect spiders. The strange thing, we're talking about the dreaming. We're talking about dreams. They're strange for anybody. You don't have to write a quirky person so you can write a quirky dream. And it just seems like Neil Gaiman, well, you know what the heck, let me just throw this in. And it's nonsensical. Unfortunately, that's what he did to this story by putting together this eclectic cast of characters on it. Now, you could say, well, Rose is a dream vortex and they were drawn to her, blah, 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 yada, yada, except they were together and it was Rose who were drawn to them or who went to them. Oh, also, we do get a little bit of Barbie's story, which is going to come into play in a story called A Game of You coming up. I do like that. What's going on with the bridal twins? I have no freaking clue. I don't know. that I was reading that going, okay, this is weird. Ken dreams of money and power, and I don't know. It just this was not a good issue, guys. At least we got to see what a dream vortex was. She's breaking down the barriers of dream, and Sandman has to put them together. And she calls. He ends up calling Rose over. He takes care of it, and once again, it's dream. This is what he does. He's in control of everything. Everybody's dreams is something about finding their own identity and being who they are really instead of the face that they put forward to everybody. Now, afterwards, of course, the people go up. They try to find Rose. She's gone. They've seen her in the dreams when everything broke down. They wonder what's happening. She's in the dreaming with Morpheus. And so we also see Gilbert, and he's saying, oh my gosh, she's the vortex? He didn't know. But it makes sense. And he goes, well, if she's the vortex, that means the boss, Morpheus, has to kill her, and that's where this issue ends. Issue number 16 of Sandman is The Dollhouse Part 7, and right here we're dealing with the aftermath. Sandman flat out tells her she has to die, and she's coming to grips. You actually get to see Rose go through all of the different stages, although she never really lets go of anger. Gilbert comes up trying to protect her, not physically. He understands there's no protecting her physically. If Morpheus wants to kill her, he's going to kill her. but he does state a case for her, and I thought that was kind of nice. And explaining about how much he cared for life. Sandman doesn't feel that he could really punish Gilbert, so he just lets him go back to being Fiddler's Green, which is what he started off being. And apparently Fiddler's Green is a very beautiful place in the dreaming. On the outside world, Rose's grandmother dies, or at least she's dreaming and she's soon to die. And she says, no, I was supposed to be the dreaming, and if you had not, or the vortex, and if you hadn't been captured, I would have been. So she takes Rose's heart and puts it inside of her, because the heart is what made her the vortex. And then Rose's grandmother dies. Now there's no need to kill Rose, and life gets back to somewhat normal in that it's really just a case of she's trying to deal with what had happened. It's a really good character story, and I like the last issue. For all the problems that this volume has, this last issue makes up for a lot of it, I have to say. At least all the ties are tied. He even visits Desire and basically says, you ever do something like that again, you know, I'm going to kill you. And I thought that was pretty amazing as well. One thing to say, and this is in any Sandman book, always watch the backgrounds. Always watch the smaller characters. I mentioned the book with Hobbs only brings up Joanne, what was it? I forget her name, the Constantine chick. Anyway, it also sets up another story that's going to come along when he meets Will Shakespeare, and that's in Dream Country. And that's one of the great things about Sandman. Even though Dollhouse is it is weaker than Preludes and Nocturnes. I would give Preludes and Nocturnes probably an A-. This gets a B. You know, not bad. There's just 2 issues that don't need to be in this particular volume, and it's just padding at this point. The story itself is good. It's not great. It's not memorable, to tell you the truth, especially considering how much it seems to mirror Game of You, where we're actually getting scenes of a Game of You in this particular volume. The problem with the Dollhouse is, instead of being a story filled with great ideas, it seems like a lot of great ideas that were put together and then a narrative was formed around them to make a story. It's good, it just doesn't feel as natural. But that is my opinion. What is yours? Have you read The Dollhouse? If so, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you get out of it? Which ones were your favorite issues? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, of course, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell. And if you don't mind helping out the channel, go on over. There's a tip jar at Patreon or at Ko-Fi. Drop $1 in the till. Help me keep making videos for you. I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.